In the summer of 1941, the shadow of the swastika stretched across Europe. From the shores of France to the borders of the Soviet Union, Hitler's war machine seemed unstoppable. Only one nation held out: Great Britain, isolated and defiant across the English Channel. The world held its breath, waiting for the final assault. And then, in a move that would baffle generals and historians for decades, Hitler turned his gaze east. In his sprawling war room, surrounded by maps and generals, he made the most fateful and dangerous decision of his life. A decision that would not only seal the fate of his empire, but would also ignite the deadliest conflict in human history. Was this a calculated risk, a madman's gamble, or something far more sinister? Could it be that British spies, operating from the shadows, had just tricked Hitler into invading Russia? On June 22, 1941, the dam broke. Operation Barbarossa, the largest land invasion ever conceived, was unleashed. Over 3 million German soldiers, supported by thousands of tanks and aircraft, stormed across the Soviet frontier. Their objective was nothing less than the complete annihilation of the Soviet state. On maps, the plan looked brutally simple: a three-pronged blitzkrieg aimed at the heart of the Union. Army Group North would drive towards Leningrad, Army Group Center would seize Smolensk and then Moscow, and Army Group South would capture the resource-rich fields of Ukraine. In newsreels and speeches, Hitler's voice thundered with confidence, promising to crush what he called Jewish Bolshevism and secure living space for the German people. He predicted the entire campaign would be over in a matter of weeks, a swift, decisive victory that would make his Reich invincible. The world watched in horror as the German juggernaut rolled forward, seemingly crushing everything in its path. But the question lingered, a persistent whisper in the halls of power. Why? Why open a second front? Attacking the vast Soviet Union while Britain, with its powerful navy and global empire, remained undefeated, defied all conventional military logic. It was a cardinal sin of strategy, one that had doomed conquerors before him. Hitler was not a fool. He knew the risks. So what drove him to this seemingly reckless gamble? For years, the answer was attributed to his own arrogance and ideological hatred. But another, more shadowy theory began to emerge from the archives of espionage. Some historians now believe that Hitler wasn't just acting on his own beliefs. He was being led, misled by a steady stream of false intelligence, carefully crafted and planted by British spies. Flickering images of secret reports, allegedly intercepted by German agents, painted a picture of a Soviet Union on the verge of collapse, a Red Army in disarray, a populace ready to revolt, and industrial capacity far weaker than reality. Was this the key? Was Hitler convinced he was striking a hollow giant, a belief whispered into his ear by his greatest enemy? In the first few months, the illusion held. The German blitzkrieg tore through the unprepared Soviet defenses. Entire armies were encircled and destroyed in colossal battles of annihilation. The cities of Minsk and Smolensk fell in quick succession. Hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers were captured, and the road to Moscow seemed wide open. To the German high command, it seemed their intelligence was correct. The Soviet Union was a rotten structure that would collapse with the first kick. Victory parades were being planned in Berlin. The world braced for the fall of Moscow, an event that would surely signal the end of the war in the East. But as the summer sun began to fade and the first autumn rains turned the dirt roads into impassable mud, something went wrong. The advance slowed, the resistance stiffened. The sheer, unending vastness of the Russian landscape began to swallow the invaders. The quick victory Hitler had promised was slipping through his fingers, and a sense of unease began to creep into the German ranks. Then came the winter. Not just any winter, but General Winter, Russia's most formidable and ancient defender. Temperatures plummeted to unimaginable lows. German equipment, designed for temperate European climates, froze solid. Engines wouldn't start, lubricants turned to ice, and soldiers, still clad in their summer uniforms, suffered from frostbite by the tens of thousands. The swift and glorious blitzkrieg degenerated into a desperate struggle for survival against an enemy they had completely underestimated, the Russian winter. Some called it bad luck, a tragic miscalculation. But others, poring over the records years later, saw the ghostly outline of a trap. Could it be that the British knew? As we picture a shadowy figure in a London office reading a top-secret report, we must ask, was Hitler's catastrophic underestimation of the Soviet winter not just a failure of his own planning, but a carefully cultivated illusion, part of the deception all along? After the war, as archives were unsealed and classified documents saw the light of day, a trail of strange coincidences began to appear. Declassified British files from the codebreakers at Bletchley Park and the agents of the Special Operations Executive revealed a stunningly sophisticated intelligence war. Reports detailing supposed weaknesses in the Red Army, exaggerated accounts of political instability, and understated assessments of Soviet industrial might. Reports that, through a series of convenient leaks and captured agents, found their way directly into the hands of German intelligence. Was it all just a string of lucky breaks for the Allies? Or was it a brilliantly orchestrated campaign of misinformation, designed to lure Hitler into a war on two fronts? A psychological masterstroke to turn Germany's greatest strength, its army, into the instrument of its own destruction. Modern historians remain divided. Some argue the evidence is circumstantial, while others see the clear signature of a deliberate and masterful act of deception. The price of this gamble, whether Hitler's or Britain's, was written in fire and blood. By the end of 1941, the German army lay shattered before the gates of Moscow. The invasion that was meant to secure a 1,000-year Reich in a matter of months had instead bogged down into a brutal war of attrition that would consume millions of lives. The Eastern Front became a meat grinder, bleeding the Wehrmacht dry and turning the tide of the Second World War. The attack on the Soviet Union, intended to be Hitler's crowning achievement, ultimately became the decisive step toward his downfall. As the snow fell on the endless fields of graves, one haunting question remains. If British spies did indeed mislead Hitler into this disastrous invasion, it wasn't just a clever tactic. It may have been the single greatest and most devastating trick of the entire war. Thank you for watching. If you found this piece of hidden history fascinating, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the mysteries of the past.